Good afternoon, kids. This is Grandma Freeman again, and I want to show you where I'm at. I went ahead and made the buttonholes and sewed the buttons on. I went back to my first choice because I found these. These smaller ones are exactly the same style as the 3/4 inch buttons. These are about 5/8 inch. It doesn't say on this card that they came on. Well, I took two of them off and I sewed them on the cuffs. So there it is. So I've got the smaller ones on the cuffs that match the same style as the 3/4 that I used on the front. This is kind of a jacket style dress top or bodice. So the larger buttons do look better and fit the buttonholes. Of course, I reduced the size of the buttonholes because I thought I was going to use the 5/8 buttons, a different style than these. But these were my first choice. The only problem is there are only 3 of them. And there's the third one. I'm going to save that in case I lose a button. And then, of course, I have all 4 of these left. So if I lose the cuff buttons, I don't have a problem matching it up. So I went ahead and I pinned the sleeves in, matching the notches first. There's a large notch, which is 2 notches together, and I just cut them as a large notch, one large notch, and then the smaller notches. Now that's a very important step to match those notches and the underarm seam. And then you have some I had tailor tacks to mark the top and the 2 sides, back and front. And then as I matched those, I pulled the gathering to fit in and to ease the sleeves in. And I did that first. I did one at a time, and I basted. At this point, these are only basted in. And I can see I'm going to have to be careful when I sew that. I'm going to make sure that goes in. Of course, that's the gathering stitch. I can always take that out if it shows. It will come out easier. I have a seam ripper, and that'll come out. So these are only basted in right there, and it's showing there too, but I'm not worried about that. And so I got my buttonholes made, and before I did a sample buttonhole, and that's what it looks like. And then I slashed it between the threads with a seam ripper. Now, you have to be very careful when you do that because you don't want to cut the ends of your buttonhole off. And so that's the size I did. And I used, this is my Singer, what is that called? A pressure foot. And that, I went between the top. See, that's where you start at the top. This goes up. There, those 2 dots, that dot and that dash match, and you start at the top. And I came down to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I did my cross stitching and came back up. Now, every buttonholer is different on each machine. I'm sure I had a different one on my old Singer. It was really complicated and harder. This one is much easier for me to use. And with the booklet that came also with my Singer machine, I have the model 9410. And Singer doesn't make machines anymore, I don't think. They went into a different business, and I don't know where they're at with that now. Anyway, so, and it shows you how to do it. It's a 4-step buttonholing, directions here. This is the third step at the bottom here, and then it goes over to the next page. And very carefully do I follow my instructions each time I have to do buttonholes. And so that's how I did it. And over here, I'll show you. I have that little buttonhole there. That's where I have to put my stitch with that little notch that moves. And over here too is the buttonhole. That's as far as it'll go. And then this is the standard foot right there, sewing foot. And so I just switched that out. And of course, when you're making buttonholes, you need to make sure that your bobbin is wound with plenty of thread, and you have plenty of thread, because when you're making a buttonhole, you're using quite a bit of thread. And then, of course, right here, I just leave that at auto. That's the tension. And then I go to make the buttonhole. You have to go from 3 to 2, back to 3. When you get down, the 1/3 makes that cross stitch, and then 2 makes that first stitch down, and 4 makes the, and then you go back to 1/3 and make that cross stitch about 4 or 5 times, and then you come back up with the 4, and that's indicated right here. It shows you what you have to use for the buttonhole. And then, see, there's my 1/3, and then the 2, and then the 4. And I stopped at the 4. That was the last one I made. So I should probably, to do a straight stitch, I need to turn all the way back to 5. That's my straight stitch. And I'm not on reverse. And then I'll need to do my second in, or I did a basting to do my first stitch on the armhole. I'm at 2.5, and that's the stitch length, and it's not inches, it's just 2.5. And so and then I need to go all the way back to the straight stitch. And when I do the arm, when I set the arms in with these machine stitches, okay, my machine, I'm just making sure my machine is set at 5, 2.5. I could set it at 2, but I don't really need to. And then it's set at auto and at the straight stitch width. These other stitches are zigzag, and then the buttonhole stitching. And so, and I have plenty of thread. I checked my bobbin. It has plenty of thread to do the arms, and plenty of thread here. So I don't foresee running out of thread in the middle of sewing these. And when I sew, here's my instructions on this top one. Is the last portion, or the last step in the section 3 sleeves. So this tells me exactly what to do. And okay, the first thing I do is I stitch a 5/8 stitch. I basted it about there too. I stitch a 5/8 stitch, and then I stitch, after that's done, I stitch a 1/4 again from the first stitch. And that's going to give me a double strength in the armholes. And there it shows the notches. Always make sure you cut out your notches especially on the sleeves, because you're going to match those up with the armholes. See, the large one and then the smaller one. That's going to put your sleeves, where your buttonholes are, it's going to put them in the back. So they're going to, if you put your arm down, it's going to be towards the back of your bodice. And that's the perfect, and and then you match up your seam, your bodice seam, and you pull your, as you can see, those show the stitches, and it's also basically where your basting stitches were for the gathering. Now the gathering on the sleeves is not like a waistline or at the yoke. They are very, very slight gathers, and so you're going to be able to set your sleeves in without much gathering, but it's going to ease your sleeve in to the bodice. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm talking about. If you're an experienced seamstress, you know these steps are very important. Now, I got my machine set back to it, and I just want to show you one more thing. I'm going to take my blouse and show you how I'm going to sew these in. Here, you can see, here is the inside of it. Well, when I sew these, I'm going to start at the bottom. Oops. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to put that in the machine at the bottom. It doesn't matter which direction. I'm going to start at the seam and at where the seam meets. And I'm going to sew it, as you can see, that's the inside of the sleeve. That's the best way to get it sewn as perfectly as possible. That way, when you get down to the gathering, which is, see, the gathering is here. You can see the gathering. See how slight that is? Well, what I want to do is ease those in as well as I can without having like a pleat. It's just a very slight gathering on the sleeve portion and not on the bodice portion. So this is the way I will sew it in, and I will of course try to follow that basting line, or maybe a little bit to the, I guess it would be the left, showing you here to the left of it, of the basting line. Not that basting line in the center. That's my hand sewing, and it is as close as I could get it. Now I'm going to go in 5/8. That's standard. And after I sew each sleeve, I'm going to grade the seam allowance with close to the second set of stitches. So I'm going to do one row of stitching all the way around and come back to the seam there, and then I'm going to come in 1/8, and then I'm going to do another line of sewing, and when I'm done, then I'll have a double strength of 2. That's if one comes out that you still don't have, it won't be open all the way, and you can easily mend it, but it will hold stronger that way. Okay, kids, this is where I'm at. I have to sew that part. And there, again, there's my Singer Model 9410. Well, I hope I helped you with how I did my buttonholes and sewed my buttons on. And I think it's okay. Most sleeves have the smaller button, and since this is like a jacket type of top bodice, the larger buttons. And of course I used the buttons that I had. I saw one and I thought that's perfect, and it was the right size, but there were only 3, and the pattern calls for 4, with the 2 on the bodice and the 1 on each of the sleeves. So now I think the next section is the skirt, number 4. section 4, on both A and B. I'm doing the B dress, which is a straight line and with some gathering in the front and probably the back too. I did this one, and I do have a picture of me wearing it. Not, you can only see the bodice part, but I'll show that to you if I can. Maybe next time I can take a picture of it or something. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Please like and subscribe. Bye now.